it's Katrina. In today's video, I'm going to share some tips for people who are about to start uni. I'm studying commerce and I'm going into my third year this year, so I have enough experience with uni to provide some advice for those of you who are going into your first year. Type of bag you should use. The first thing you will need is a backpack, which is more comfortable than carrying a bag over one shoulder, especially if you're going to catch public transport, because that means lots of walking. Car parks at uni tend to get busy. If you go to a big uni like UWA, parking will be very busy and you will probably catch public transport even if you live nearby. There might be some nearby car parks outside of campus, for example in a shopping centre, which would work. So I would recommend looking into car parks before you start uni. Now back to the backpack, no pun intended. This particular backpack, it's getting worn out, so I should get a new one soon. I like how this one has multiple pockets. It even has some internal pockets. Let me find them. Like these, which I find useful for carrying small things. Stationery. I think this goes without saying, but you will need a pencil case. With exams, pens, pencils and erasers are allowed, but you aren't allowed to have correction tape or whiteout, no idea why. So you will definitely want pencils and erasers, but pens are optional. Also, highlighters aren't allowed in exams. They are useful if you do handwritten notes, but if you do type notes instead, you wouldn't need highlighters. Now onto calculators. This is the one I used in high school. I've only had one exam, which was finance, where I was allowed to use this calculator. This one is more expensive than a scientific calculator or a finance calculator, which is different from a scientific calculator. So if you're going to study finance, you will either want this calculator or a finance calculator. A scientific calculator won't work. I'm doing an accounting major. Help me, it's not fun. So this type of calculator isn't allowed, and I have to use a non-programmable calculator like a scientific calculator. You will need a computer in uni, even if you take handwritten notes, because you'll have online tests and other things will be online as well. It doesn't matter what kind of computer you use, because in the workplace they give you a computer to borrow. I use a MacBook Air and it works well. It's important that you don't use a tablet because online tests won't work, and you'll need access to programs like Microsoft Word, which you'll have free access to as a student. Notebooks. You will need notebooks, especially if you prefer doing handwritten notes. If you prefer typed notes, you can continue doing that, but it's more effective to write them, even though it takes longer. You might still want to buy some textbooks because you might need to do things like maths questions, which would be easier on paper. You wouldn't need folders like these because you won't receive a lot of paper. You might receive 1 or 2 pieces of paper only in the first week, but I've only had 1 or 2 units that had paper every week. Tests and assignments. Like I mentioned earlier, tests are online and you have a 1 to 2 day period to complete the test. Notes are allowed, which is a lot easier than what we had in high school, where notes weren't allowed. I've had a few units with weekly quizzes, but it's usually 2 or 3 online tests and also assignments. With assignments, you submit it online through a plagiarism checker called Turnitin, which has red, yellow and green in terms of how much plagiarism you have. I think it's obvious as to what each one means. I believe green is 20% plagiarism or less, which means it's okay to have 2% plagiarism in your work. Exams. With exams, they will either be fully closed book, which means notes aren't allowed, or they will be restricted open book, which means you'll have limits on notes. For example, 1 page of notes or the textbook without annotation. With the stuff you can bring to the exam, you have time before the exam starts to put stuff in your bag. You will have your bag in the exam room and you can't open it unless you have permission from the supervisor. The exam supervisors are really nice. It's not like they'll try to get you in trouble. And also, not everyone will be in the same exam room. If you have special conditions like me, you'll be doing your exam in a separate room. I've had people from nursing and teaching in my exam room. Timetable. The normal amount of units to do in a semester is 4. 5 is the maximum, but I won't recommend doing this unless you're good at handling stress. It doesn't matter if those units are online or repeated, just don't do it. I'm now doing 3 units per semester, which is the ideal. So my advice is to start off with 4 units and then drop to 3 units if you can't handle 4. Some units are available during the summer or winter period, and it's good to do them because it means having less units in your last semester. Also, you can do units at other unis. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and check out my other social media, which is linked below.